Welcome to the Sons of Mjolnir podcast.
The Sons of... what?
This isn't your Sons of Macaroni, yeah!
The Sons of Mjolnir?
This is Sons of Mjolnir, yeah!
Hey, all you Flurker nerds, it's Fat Thor here with another episode of Sons of Mjolnir. Unfortunately, it is just going to be me today. Gorgon and Cap are going to both be off saving the world. But fortunately, I am joined by the wonderful, the talented Mr. Mark Espinosa. He's going to be coming on and nerding out with us today all about his book, Greetings from the Maglev. So this is a book that I was lucky enough to read before we got on here, and gotta say, man, I really enjoyed it. It was really cool. I really love the concept, and I'm super excited to pick your brain a little bit of how that all came together. But before we get into that, let's tell the people who you are, what you're about. Mr. Mark Espinosa, again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Should I call you Mr. Thor, Mr. Fat Thor? What's the best way to...
So my real name's TJ, but I mean,
Yes.
most people know me as Fat Thor. So TJ, Fat Thor, Mr. God of Thunder, all those are acceptable.
Oh, please. Please, my father was the god of thunder. You just call me Thor.
Yeah,
please.
right?
Yeah, I've been, been reading comics my whole life. One of those picking up the comics at 5, kind of never stops. I still get my comics every week.
Mm-hmm.
A buddy of mine, Larry Young, he is the publisher of a company called AIT Planet Lar. He's done a lot of books in the past. Black Diamond, Astronauts in Trouble, which was re-released by Image, I think, in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He is a big comic guy, always been around for a while. And I kind of floated the idea of wanting to do a comic. And he was like, yeah, man, you got the brain for it. You got the imagination for it. Let's try it. So his first pitch to me was a cowboy western with a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I could write that. So I wrote the script, took me like a month, 2 months, handed it to him, and he was like, oh, cool, this is complete trash and unreadable. I'm like, yeah,
Awesome. Yes.
thank you. And he was like, let's try again. So I kind of had this other idea. We were going to do a loose sequel to one of his other books, and he kind of said, no, let's change it enough that it's yours. So I came up with the whole Maglev idea, super highway, middle of the country, runs on electric, solar, magnetic power that only the rich and wild can use. And I wrote the script. I banged it out in like 3 weeks. I sent it to him, and he was like, no notes. It's perfect. I was like, no way. He was like, yeah, man, whatever you did between book 1 and book 2, you nailed it.
Wow, that's
like, wow,
crazy
awesome.
to have that kind of feedback. I mean, was that your second script ever, or?
Yes. It's funny because when I
Wow.
told my partner that, they were like, he's just saying he likes it because he's your friend. And I go, no, because he absolutely ate me alive in my first script.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I trust his word.
Yeah, definitely. So going back a little bit, so did you have any writing experience prior to that first script that you sent in, or was it kind of just I'm a huge fan of comics, I kind of want to dabble into this, or like I said, did you have some prior experience writing before that?
It was a little bit of both. I kind of had like dabbled with a few short stories here and there,
Mm-hmm.
submitting to a few writing contests. And then, as you know, everyone our age, it's like Facebook, MySpace, like, oh, I can write a little short story and post it on my MySpace, and my
Yeah.
top 5 friends will share it. And, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of start to get a vibe of like whether people like it or not, what
Mm-hmm.
what you think you can get away with. And I don't know, I think I just kind of got the idea that I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of okay at doing this, and I enjoy
Yeah.
doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And and then to the point that Larry was like, you dabble with all this Facebook short story bullshit. You should actually try writing a story because I think you'd be good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that's like, I don't know, super fascinating to me, because I think that all of us nerds in the world out there that are super into comic books, or even, novels and, actual books and whatnot, everyone kind of has like, oh, I could do this, like I could write, but it's like
Yeah.
to actually take that step and to do it, I think is something that 95% of people never actually do. So it just like
Yeah.
really fascinates me to find when I talk to people like you, like what caused you to really take that step. And like you
Yeah.
said, say you did your Facebook stuff and you kind of found your own writing voice. And like I said, it's really cool to me seeing people, like I
Yeah.
said, take that step. And I mean, now it resulted in this awesome book, Maglev, which, like I said, I'm really big fan of. Thank you again
Thank you.
for sending that over to me. I really enjoyed reading it. And also, before
Yeah.
we get going, I also do want to give big shout out to our brother Blake over at Blake's Buzz. He's the one that helped set this whole thing up. So Blake, if you're out there, thank you so much, brother. We both love you.
Yeah, absolutely. Love you,
But
Blake.
yeah, love you, love you. But let's get back to the book. So Maglev, like you were talking about, so it's kind of like a future dystopian kind of world where basically everything revolves around this highway, this like super highway that's powered. Let's see, I got it written down here. Magnetic propulsion technology with solar panel super fusion highways, which I mean that sentence alone is like, okay, I'm 100% in on this. And so, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I really loved the main character, or if you would call her the main character, Chris
Yeah.
Miles, correct?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Yes.
like John Wick, badass. Just like, I really love what you guys did with the character. But can you talk a little bit about? I know you kind of mentioned this previously when you were talking about writing the script for it, but
Mhm.
so where did this idea come from? I can definitely see, I mean, you got like some Mad Max influence in there for sure. If correct me if I'm
Yeah.
mistaken. And like I
Yeah.
said, that whole dystopian thing, but like I'm sure that you probably have like a file somewhere away like explaining how the world got this way, all that stuff. But if
Yes.
you can kind of give us a little bit of rundown again, like how did you come up with this kind of world that these characters are in, and then our main character of Chris Miles.
Well, it's interesting. It kind of all started with one idea of like like I was talking to my buddy Steve, and we were pitching this idea of like a Mad Max story with a party bus. So it'd be people kind of
Okay.
like driving through this chaotic world where people are like cannibals and like the Holocaust, all this crazy stuff. That's
Yeah.
And but in this one story would be like this party bus is kind of like partying its way through Mad Max.
Hmm.
And we always kind of had this idea. We're like, oh, I like it. But then when you have this idea, we kind of I started building out of like, well, it can't be that kind of Mad Max. It has to be kind of like a world that's bad but not completely falling apart. Because like, how could you have like a Snowpiercer type train, but then you got to have to like build out more. So I was like, okay, we have the bus. Where do we go from there? Okay, well, it's a magnetic highway. Okay, that's cool. Let's do that. And that was only because it was in the news at the time when I started writing it. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is I wonder if that's ever going to happen one day.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's try that. And
Hmm.
then from there, I was like, okay, but I got to build a story on it. So I was like, oh, Chris Miles, that's a great character. Let's have Chris Miles on the party bus. Well, why is she on the party bus? Oh, because of this. So it was basically just kind of like working from one idea, building the world a little bit, putting the character in that world, having them maneuver through this one story part. And then it just kind of kept growing and growing to the idea of like the second book, Chris Miles. The first book ends with Chris, spoiler, being getting arrested. The second book is her in prison, and then the third book is just her going across the Maglev trying to get revenge. So
Okay.
it was really all started with one small concept that just kept growing, getting bigger.
Hmm. Wow, that's really
Yeah,
cool. And I mean, just to hear, like you said, the kind of thought process on this idea led to this idea, and then this, like, I don't know, again, just very fascinating to hear how these kind of things come together. And like
yeah,
you said, building off of the ideas, building off each other to create one cohesive story. And like I said, just
yeah,
really, really cool. I also do want to talk a little bit about, I know Adam unfortunately couldn't be here, Adam Cahoon, that will be the artist on the book. But I do want to talk a little bit about the art if you can. I was
yeah.
wondering, so it's definitely a very unique style. I don't think I've read a book with this kind of art style in a long time. And it's simple but effective. If I think that's the best way I can put it. And at first I gotta be honest with you. At first I was kind of like, okay, what is this? Like the style, again, just not something I'm really used to. But as the book went on, at least in my opinion, I felt that it really fit the story very well. And the no color kind of like I said, the more simple style of drawing, I think added to, I don't want to say confusion, but it added to like what was the craziness that was going on in the book. Like when, especially the one example I can think of is when Chris is making her way through the bus and trying to get to, forgive me, I forget his name, but the kind of main
the son
guy. Yeah, the son.
Yeah.
And like I said, it to me, like I said, it just really added to the feeling of chaos that was going on in the book that Chris, the character, was experiencing. So I was curious, again, I know Adam could probably talk a lot more to this, but what was the kind of idea of going that route with the art style? Like, is that just Adam's preferred style, or was that an intentional choice for the story?
It's funny. I feel like Sam Witwicky from Transformers. It's like, oh, we were supposed to have Optimus Prime here, but he couldn't make it. So, damn, you could talk about the Allspark, right? I'm like, yeah, I totally can. I know all about that kind of stuff.
The elemental components of energy on a single constant K rate extrapolate reach of the 14.
Adam and I we both started this whole. This is our first book that we've ever really done. Like, my first scripts. I handed Adam just the pile of mush. Like, here's a dialogue, here's a little breakdown of what I want, what I think I should do. And this was Adam's first foray into drawing comics. He was kind of more doing gallery work at the time. There's a photo of me at one of his first gallery shows, and I'm wearing a pink shirt and a black vest, so it kind of dates how long we've been working on this project. But yeah, Adam and I were both figuring it out as we were going, especially Adam's art style. Like, he had always kind of done like high concept abstract art that was very beautiful, but like online he would post his images of like kind of similar style to what Maglev looks like. And when I finished the script, Adam was the first person who popped in my head, and I was like, hey, would you be interested in drawing a comic? Because I kind of see you're dabbling with that right now. And he was like, shit, let's do it. So the style is kind of him also growing as a comic artist. Like, you can kind of, he drew it chronologically, so you can see from start to finish how Adam's style kind of like slowly become more solid and more, I don't want to say more confident, but just kind of more like, okay, this is what the style is going to be. And then you get to the second book and it's completely like realized, and you can see what Adam's work now when he's doing the Nasty for Vault Comics. His style has kind of like really solidified to this point of just being so cool. Like, it was like we both were learning. I remember we were Googling how big a comic art page should be and how many panels you can get in there, like all the silly things that you think you know, having read comics, and then when you start doing it, you're like, wait, how many? How big? What? So yeah, Adam he got the book, and then he just developed his style throughout it, and it's beautiful, as you can, and it does work with the story about this like no color, chaotic world, and Adam's style is kind of also like very flowy, arms flying everywhere. There's a short story at the end of the book which takes place with one of the characters that gets kicked off the bus, and I think you can see there's like a 6-year gap between Adam drawing the first book and that short story, and you can kind of see like Adam from like point A to point where he's at now. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. And now that you just said that, I could definitely see like towards the end of the book, it felt like there was a lot more, how would you say, like kind of shading, a little bit more depth in like the backgrounds and stuff. So like you said, knowing that now, I can definitely see the progression of his style through the book. And like I said, I mean, for it being his first, I know he not the first time drawing, but his first comic, I mean, that's just incredible. Like I said, it's really great work. And I think, again, the style and even the no color I saw in the back of the book, maybe this was a more intentional decision, but you mentioned something in the back about, oh, we finally got this book done through quarantine and we didn't even color it or something along those lines. So
Yes.
Was there ever plans on adding color? Or because to me, again, going back to the style and how it fits the book, I think that the no color really fits the theme of the book very well, and kind of, at least what I took from it is, we're in this kind of bleak world. Like, the world of the Maglev is kind of bleak, so not having color, to me, I think really kind of enhanced that feeling, again, of like what the characters are feeling and putting myself in this world.
Yeah, I feel like it was one of those decisions that was made out of necessity that we kind of looked at, and yeah, like you said, we were like, wait, actually, this kind of fits. Like,
Hmm.
it's showcasing Adam's art more than it's great. We want to
Hmm.
show it off. It's matching the style, so we were, we at one point I think Adam did send some pitches that were like had color, like a little bit of color here, a little bit of color there,
Hmm.
but I think we just were like it looks fine without any color. It looks actually I prefer it. It's kind
Yeah.
of my aesthetic as well. So yeah, it's one of those decisions that was made out of necessity that we were like, no, let's stick with it.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I think you guys made the right decision there because I really like it, and it also, I think, in my opinion, just helps the book stand out a little bit more. Because I mean, there's
yeah,
you know as well as I do, there's millions of comics out there, especially when you're getting into the indie side of things. Like so
yeah,
many people are putting out books, and to
yeah,
me, the art, the absence of color, that really to me stands out, and it's like
yeah,
it looks different than other things that are coming out, which I
yeah,
mean, that's just always cool. You got to stand out a
yeah.
little bit.
And I feel like it draws you in a little bit more too. You have to kind
Yeah.
of like dig into each page and see
Hmm.
what's going on, and like it kind of deals with the whole subtle like there's more going on in the background, but like
Hmm.
some like allegorically and subtle. There's like you got to really just dig deep to see what's beneath the level of the surface, and that's kind of what like Chris is. On the surface level she's like this tough badass, but on the inside she's got like her history, her story, what her agenda. I It's one of those things where once we decided to run with it, I was like, yeah, it matches this, and the world is bleak and dark, and it's like the color's been drained from society, and like
Yeah.
Adam's like, calm down, I just don't have the time to color right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but it's perfect, it's
But
perfect.
there's meaning behind it. I love it.
Yeah, this was intended.
Yeah. But that kind of leads in perfectly to my next question and something I kind of want to get into. So this is book one of three, correct? So there's
Yes.
going to be two other volumes attached to this, and I'm sure that those will get more into what I'm about to ask you. So I don't want to spoil for anybody out there,
Okay.
but if you can we talk a little bit more about Chris Miles? And like I said, so I'm
Yes.
guessing that we're going to get more of this in the next few volumes, but
Mhm.
the first issue, very ambiguous of like who she is and like
Mhm.
what her deal is. So are we going to in these next couple volumes kind of peel back the layers of Chris a little bit more and find out like why is she, I mean, she's just a badass, but why is she such a
Yeah.
badass? Like what did she do before the whole Maglev thing? We get a little tease of that with her conversation with the I can't remember his name, but like the politician character.
Yeah. I know I'm
So
blanking.
yeah, so
I'm
like I
like,
said,
how do I
I don't
forget?
I don't want you to spoil anything for what's to come, but
Yeah.
if you can talk a little bit about, like I said, what we're going to learn about Chris and like her whole her place in the Maglev.
Yeah. I guess the basic idea of it was that there was a police force that kind of existed on the Maglev that kind of like monitored and controlled everything. And Chris was one of those people. And then she kind of grew out of it, just the way the world was existing. She kind of was not really happy with her place in it. So the first book is supposed to be her last job, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
because she's just kind of just ready to move on and get away from the concrete madness of the maglev. But yeah, the next two books, yeah, you delve deep into why she is the way she is in the second book, and in the third book you kind of get really like a John Wick style of like people keep saying I'm retired but I'm back kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what the third book is all about, is her just being like, I put this part of me away because I didn't like who I was, but now out of necessity I'm kind of back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the second book kind of deals more with her like personality and like her, her motivations. The third book is kind of just like why she is a badass, and it's just her being a badass the entire time.
I can't wait for that.
Right. I will say the first 2 pages from the first book are a flash yeah, back from the third book.
Okay.
So that one scene is what happens, the basically the premise of the whole entire third book.
Okay, so there's a little tease in there too. Okay, see, it slipped
Right.
right past me. Awesome,
Like,
awesome. So I do want to say, I mean, this is really just I wanted to mention this because I really enjoyed these lines. I don't know if there's really a question on top of them, but I really love. So when I was reading the lines that really stuck out to me, and I really like the way you describe the maglev and like especially
uh,
when they're on the highway, how you kind of describe the world around the Maglev. And the one
Yeah.
line that really stood out to me that I really loved was it says, "Exit ramps do not baptize you clean. Toll booths do not accept your sins." And I
Yeah.
thought that was such a great line. And again, just
Thank you.
really like put me on the mag. Like I felt like I was on the Maglev. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like I really love that. Is there any kind of weight to those lines specifically? Do you remember when you were writing them? Or like I said, I just was a really big fan of those lines in particular. I had to bring them up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I it was kind of this idea of like I said originally, like it was a Mad Max world. Well, we don't want to all be. I'm like, what if like the Mad Max world existed on this one highway kind of thing? And it's this kind of idea that like you can be this chaotic force in this one circumstance, but then you expect that like once you leave that area, you're okay. Well, that's not me who I am anymore. That's just who I am there. And
Yeah.
I kind of like this like crossing off into the highway and being like Chris tries to retire, and it's like this idea of like, well, you're never gonna not be that person anymore, and this idea of that like you could, just by changing your environment, you can change who you are possibly. But I kind of like this idea of like there's always going to be a little bit of you wherever you go, and you have to kind of deal with that aspect. And I don't know, that line just kind of, I thought it was just cool when I wrote it, but I do like this idea that Chris is a character who's trying to change, but it not only forget who she was, but also kind of grow to a new person instead of just being like, I'm not this chaotic force anymore. And then, and second and third books, you kind of see her come to terms with this idea that like, maybe I am still that, but I'm also still me, you know?
Yeah, I really love that. And I think that's something like it's a theme that everyone can relate to. I mean, we all have things that we strive to be better at, or, things that we might aspects of ourselves that we would rather not have. And
Yeah.
like you said, I think that those lines and the setting of the Maglev, again, that's just a universal kind of thing that everyone can relate to. So like I said, those
Yeah.
lines really jumped out at me. I had to
Oh, thank you.
mention them and pick your brain about that a little bit. As an indie writer, I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit as an indie creator in the world of the big two comics, if you would. And I find that for a lot of indie creators that I talk to and, see online and stuff, I know we talked about like you kind of fell into writing the script with your buddy. You were talking about, with your Facebook posts and all that. But I feel that a lot of people who write indie and, kind of start on that journey, they do it because they feel like there's something that they're not getting from the big two, like from Marvel or from DC. So I'm just curious, what if you do relate to that, what is that kind of thing that you feel like as a fan you weren't really getting from, like I said, the big two, or the other bigger publishers, that you felt that you wanted to bring your voice in and you wanted to bring, X, Y, and Z to the comic book community?
Oh, that's interesting. I think a good example of that would be Chris herself, because when I first started writing the scripts, actually, when the first book was done, I pitched it to a publisher, and she read it and she said, I'm kind of amazed that you somehow avoided every trope that a female heroine always falls into, or like the writer always forces on her. Her trauma is always based on her sexuality or her orientation, or her weaknesses and vulnerabilities are always because of like her being a woman. Whereas with Chris, she's not a badass who's a woman. She's a woman and she happens to be badass. It's like, so I think when writing the story, we kind of wanted to create a crazy, wild story that somehow also avoided all the like trappings that people generally fall into when they're writing stories. So like there are parts when Chris will be like, oh, a monologue, huh? Well, that's not going to come back and bite me in the ass later. Where a lot of these things where stories kind of were becoming too formulaic in a way where you knew which character was going to do this, and they had to do this because it's what that kind of character would do. So I think with this story, I kind of wanted to write a story that was a badass action story, but then also didn't fall into the trappings that most badass action stories fall into. It's a story about revenge, and it's not revenge because she was like wronged in any particular way. She was just, wronged in a way that anyone could be, not just a woman, any gender at all. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe just having the freedom to create characters that just aren't so, not, I don't want to say cliche, but just so the way that they usually are is always kind of fun, and creating a world that, is similar to our world in the way that, like, the rich and the powerful control most of the things and everyone's kind of fighting for scraps, but then also kind of giving that side of the world. My biggest problem with Marvel, which I constantly think about, is that there will be an issue of like Fantastic Four when Galactus will be like towering above New York City. And then somehow after that whole story is resolved, all the people in New York have to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
Or like someone will like lose their loved one and like be devastated about it. But then like Jean Grey and Cyclops will just keep coming back, And I was always like interested in this idea that like the background people in all these stories are always just kind of like fodder. They don't matter, Like meanwhile, there's like a psychiatrist in the Marvel universe that has like, I know that gods exist and I know there's an afterlife, but you can't just like not go to work. You have to pay your bills.
The therapists in the Marvel universe got to be paid like crazy because
right? Like, how do you tell someone to get over their loved one when like they could come back tomorrow?
Yeah.
Thor has died. How many times they come back?
Yeah.
So, and I think I kind of wanted to write a story where like the background people weren't just background; they were actual people. Like they are part of the world. And I kind of add that more in the second story where the people are like, no, this is how it influenced me. This is how the magnetic superhighway affected my life. And I'm like, you normally wouldn't really see, and then they just go away and never come back. So it's like you talk to the people and they're not just like extras that just kind of exist. Like, oh, Silver Surfer guy flying through the city,
Yeah, definitely. And I think that goes kind of circles back around to that small short story that you have at the end of the book. I mean, that whole story is literally about a bystander. I mean, I guess not necessarily bystander because he gets thrown off the thing, but
he caused a little ruckus.
Yeah, exactly. But you get what I mean, though. It's like I said, the whole story is off of, I guess you could say, like a side character. And hearing you talk about it, I definitely felt that in the issue. Like, yes, Chris is the main character, and we also have like the son and the politician guy with the Maglev. But I did feel like, again, especially with that short story at the end, that like the people around matter as well. And like even when we see those quick shots of underneath the Maglev of like what the people are doing underneath that, again, it all just really worked together very well to, again, put me in this world. And like when I was reading it, I felt like I was on the Maglev. Like I was this, like I didn't, again, this, a lot of this stuff will be revealed in the next volumes, but it's like I don't know exactly everything that's going on, but I'm in this world, and like this is where we're at now.
Yeah, Adam totally picked that up too. Like I probably don't think I even said anything, but he, like, there's that one panel where you kind of see like the shanty towns existing underneath the Maglev, kind of siphoning power off the bridge. Like Adam just kind of like, he was invested as well. Like he was kind of like, yeah, no, it's not just this one road; it's the society around it as well.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. And then when he pitched the idea for the short story, I was like, that's great. I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. We want this one guy who was just kicked out a window. We want to see now where he landed and how his story continues. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I really enjoyed it too, and I think other people out there will also enjoy it because, like I said, it just all works to put you into this world. And I don't know if this is a kind of stupid comment or dumb, but I really felt like when I was reading, I was like, this could be like a Netflix show or some shit. Like I was like, this could easily be like a TV show. Like just, it was very, I don't know if cinematic is the right word, but engaging. I would say engaging. Like I was very engaged with the story, the writing and the art together. Like I said, just really worked to put me into this world. And like I said, I just while I will say a lot of people out there know us as the Marvel shills and whatnot, and I read a lot of Big Two stuff, I'll say like I have not been pulled into a Big Two story like that in a long time. And like something where I really felt, again, like I was in this world and invested in what's going on, and I really was caught up in not trying to figure it out, because like I said, I know we're going to get 2 more volumes that will probably answer all of my questions, but just like, so what, like, what was the one line that forgive me again, I forget the guy's
No,
name,
that's
but
fine.
the main like business, the Maglev like
Oh,
guy,
Chris, is it? Yeah. Oh,
the Heinz
I don't know why
family.
I'm blanking. The Heinz family. Yeah.
Yeah, the Heinz
I've
family.
read this book 1,000 times and like
Yeah.
3 times this weekend, and I'm like
Yeah.
still like, oh god.
Wait, Jim, Jeff? But no, the Heinz
I've heard
family,
of it.
though, there was a line in the book where they said, I think it was the son, and he says, like, my father captured the power of the sun or something along
Yeah.
those lines. And I'm just like, what does that mean? Like, so where, as I'm guessing, again, I don't want you to spoil anything, but is that
Yeah.
something else we're gonna get into? Is, how did the Heinz acquire this technology and or power to create the maglev? Because that seemed like something you were subtly kind of setting up, like there's a story there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think honestly, it's just gonna be the thing where that's the problem I feel like that I ran into as a writer at the beginning, where I felt like I wanted to explain everything.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to go like, here's this highway. Who created it?
Mm-hmm.
How did the corporations come together and decide to like unite their, interest into this one purpose, was one goal? And then like how was the meeting and what happened in the world, and like what was it like when the world fell apart, and how come the gasoline shortage was worse than it was? And then it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I know it. I don't need to like explain it and put it
Mm-hmm.
out there. I think the Heinz solar power fusion situation will be kind of teased in the third book, but it will never be completely explained. It will just
Okay.
kind of be like, it's something we did because we
Uh-huh.
needed to do it, and we're rich, and you don't need to know how it works because it
Yeah.
works, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I honestly kind of like that though, because I think that kind of speaks a little bit to real life. And I mean, you
yeah,
have people that are, super rich and whatever, but it's like we don't really know like what happens behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, how
yeah,
did they really get that rich? How did they acquire all this? And I think, like you said, because
yeah,
you created all this shit, so obviously,
yeah.
but I think for the audience, and that kind of reminds me as well, for this first issue, I like the ambiguity of it.
Ambiguity.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. But I like that about it, because I feel like, and especially in this first issue, you go a little bit into like what happened to the world with the resources being
Yeah,
depleted, and like basically the maglev was the answer. But I think that gave me enough. And I think
yeah,
it gives me, as a reader, I think it gives me enough to know what happened, but also it lets my mind work. It lets me, theorize and fantasize, like, oh, well, maybe it went down like this, or maybe it went down like this. And I think it
yeah,
might be one of those things, in my opinion, where maybe not having a clear cut, like, oh, the Heinz went here and they got this and they did this. I
yeah,
think leaving it up to the reader is a little bit more interesting. And I think it will,
yeah.
like I said, I love a good theory. I love theorizing. If
Yeah.
anybody out there that's watched our past episodes or listens to us, you guys know that we love a good tinfoil hat. So I
Yes.
like I said, I think it works again to the story, leaving it a
Oh,
little ambiguous. Oh, hey, we got a cat in here.
oh, we got a cat.
oh,
Wait, 2 cats? Oh, just one.
oh, just one. We're getting only one appearance today.
Okay, it's fine. No,
But yeah,
I like that too. It's funny if I like to joke that if every Marvel movie that comes out is as complex as I think they're gonna be, then they would be the most amazing things ever. Because it's like when Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was about to come out, I was like, we're gonna have the X-Men, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have that. He's gonna jump from reality to reality. There's gonna be like
yep,
this thing, this is gonna get explained, and that's gonna get explained, and it's gonna lead into this, and it's like, oh, they didn't do any of that. I'm like,
yeah,
that's fine. But like, just here, like just having the idea of it, I was like, okay, but that's cool.
hmm,
Like Xavier was there, so there was an X-Men in that universe. So like I don't need to see them, but I would have
yeah.
liked to have seen them. But
Say we all would have liked to see it, but again, just going back to the original concept of like letting the wheels turn, and I think it reminds me of I don't know if I'm assuming you're probably a horror fan, right? Horror movies. I
yeah,
remember interview with John Carpenter, and he was talking about the original Halloween movie, and they
Uh-huh.
asked him like why he didn't show a lot of the kills. Like if you go back and watch it, you'll notice like the camera cuts before, Michael does his thing or whatever.
Right.
And he said that the reason he did that was because like the human imagination is always scarier than anything like I can show you on screen. And like what you
Yeah.
imagine in your head is always going to be crazier and scarier than anything I can come up with. And I think that
Yeah.
that idea translates very well into a lot of different medium, and kind of like I said goes back to uh getting overly explaining in some of like people's world building or lore. I think in a lot of times, and in this instance with the Maglev, it really benefits to have like we know what happened, but we don't need every
Yeah.
single detail. And I think that kind of,
Yeah.
again, we see the way that the world is and like how people live underneath the Maglev. And again, while I would love to see all of that like go down, I'm sure that could be like a 30 chapter book or something like that. So I
Yeah.
think leaving it to showing us the little bits and letting the audience, like I said, decipher that themselves, let the wheels turn, I think that, in my opinion, adds to, like I said, what could have happened during that time. Like what are these people doing, and I really like that.
It's funny because now I'm like, I could totally see it now. Like, the government has been hiding how severely depleted our oil resources were. There's
Mhm.
some scientist in Wisconsin who's toying with this idea of a magnetic highway.
Yeah.
They come in and they take their idea.
Hmm.
It's like a whole big thing. No, but it's just like, nope, we ran out of oil. We needed this new way of traveling, and we made it happen.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it. And like I said, it's I think people can, especially writers, and I mean, I've experienced this. I haven't written a comic book myself, but everyone, with their buddies, like, yeah, this was a cool idea. Like, we could do this. And I think a lot of people get too caught up on the world building. And like you said,
yes,
like trying to find an answer to every single thread that you bring up in your story. But I think you have a very refreshing and good take on that, as like we were talking about, like
yeah.
everything doesn't necessarily need to be explained.
Yeah, you got to kill your darlings sometimes, as it were, the expression goes.
Yeah.
Stephen King has a really good on writing book that if I do recommend for people potentially trying to like hone their writing craft. He talks a lot about his situations of how he like what he had to do and what he went through and how he helped get over it, and it kind of helped me at the time I was writing this, just like because you know him, if you're not familiar with his books, or if you are, like the whole Gunslinger series, you can kind of see how he could easily just go so in detail and in depth on these things, and he
Mhm.
sometimes just breezes right past it and says like, "Oh, that's that."
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, here we go.
Uh-huh.
Where you wanna keep the story flowing, but you also want to give enough like Star Trek, the new Strange New Worlds. I don't know if you're into that.
Mhm.
I'm a sorry, big nerd.
No,
Um,
please nerd out,
what
man.
am
This is what we're
what am I
here
doing
for.
on this nerd show talking
Yeah.
about nerd stuff?
Come
God, this
on,
is
man.
ridiculous.
Let it fly, my man.
Yeah, but just like one random like on the newer episode that was a crossover with Lower Decks, they're talking about this type of grain, and it's just one casual line where they say, "Oh, it's like level 2," but then if you're a big fan, you know that level 3 is what the triples would eat in the original Star Trek show. So it's like you don't have to explain everything; just
Mhm.
throw a little nugget out there, and then kind of like let your brain build the bridge between the two ideas.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And then I do want to ask you, so we're talking a little bit about Star Trek. You said you're a huge Star Trek fan. Uh Besides writing comics, what do you I mean, you're a comic nerd just like all of us. So what are you
Yeah.
reading these days? What kind of stuff do you find yourself when you're not, I mean, I'm sure you're probably very similar too. You probably read a lot of stuff for like research purposes and for other projects, but I'm
Yeah.
talking just strictly like when Mark sits down, has a drink, and is relaxing, like what are you picking up?
So I'm mostly Marvel.
Okay,
Um,
I'm a Marvel boy myself, so
yeah. It's funny. The only time I delve into DC is when they do Elseworld stuff, like the
mhm,
deceased storylines and the DC versus
yes.
vampire stuff is the stuff I read
Hmm.
recently that I was like, oh, I love it. There's a scene in the deceased books when Green Arrow fires a arrow through like a tornado hurricane and takes out zombie Aquaman, and he's like, you didn't think I was as bad as Batman, screw you, kind of thing. And I was like, oh,
Sign me up.
that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I gotta say the X-Men books right now are kind of like my favorite thing.
That's your jam.
What Hickman started with that whole just reinvention of the X-Men and just the whole House of X, Powers of X,
Mhm.
like that whole storyline and everything kind of like coming out of that has just been like my favorite. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
the
just so good.
Krakoa era is
Uh,
so good. I'm
yeah.
not an expert by any means, and
Mm.
people listening or watching this and that have watched our other episodes will probably laugh at me because I've been saying for almost a year now, like I'm doing my X read, I'm catching up, don't worry. Which I promise I still am. I'm still catching up.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's just so much with the Krakoa era. I mean, you have what X of Swords, you have the Rise of
Yeah.
X, you have X-Men Red,
Yeah.
and then you got Immortal X-Men that's going on
Yep.
right now, which I am picking up Immortal. I just have again,
Okay.
I'm super behind, so I'm
No, yeah.
catching up like
Yeah.
crazy.
And then there's like X-Force and the Marauders
Yeah,
and
and
like
Hellions
Excalibur.
and
And yeah, it's like, oh yeah, it's a
my
lot.
head's
But
spinning, but it's so
yeah.
good. And like you said, I mean, I was doing a review for Ultimate Invasion. Sorry, I'm Secret
Oh,
Invasion, and all these
yeah.
invasions are in my head. But
Yeah.
I said the one thing that Hickman knows how to do, it's write a goddamn event. And it's like the man just knows how to bring these massive stories and make it palpable for like, us stupid
Yeah.
nerds. Cause I mean the man is
Oh,
just on
totally.
another level.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and I remember when he did the Council of Reed storyline for the Fantastic Four,
Yes.
like such a simple concept of like the multiversal reads have all gathered together, but it broke my brain. I was
Yeah.
like before like Rick and Morty and any of the other
Yeah,
like
yeah.
multiversal stuff was happening. This idea that like there are multiple, like Marvel has always done the multiverse thing, but he did it in such a way that was like so grand, but then also so like, wow, this is amazing. This is
Yeah,
perfect.
definitely. And I
Yeah.
mean, you brought up the Council of Reeds. I wish my co-host Gorgon was here because he's the number one Reed Richards hater of the nerdverse out here. And he would go. We actually on our Ultimate Invasion episode, we had like a good like 20-minute tangent all about the Council of Reeds and how you can't. There's not a Reed to be trusted. You can't trust the Reed Richards.
Oh, buddy. I love
Oh,
it.
oh yeah, Reed's on our hit list over here. But going back to more book stuff and more your book stuff. So I got
Yeah.
to ask, excuse me, greetings from Maglev. We got volume
Yeah.
1 coming this September, correct?
Yes.
And then we're going to have
Yes.
volumes 2 and 3 following that. What
Yes.
else do we got going on? What else is Mark Espinosa working on? You got some
Oh
more
man.
stuff in the chamber? Are we gonna see maybe more of the Maglev universe, or is Maglev after volume 3? Is that I mean, obviously anything can happen in the future, but as of right now, is that where you envision this world? I don't want to necessarily say story because to me it seems like
Yeah.
the world of the Maglev is very rich for other stories, even if it's not
Yeah.
with Chris and the Hineses. So, could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard talking about it right now and not being like, I could totally keep going with this world.
Yeah.
Like you said, like we could do a prequel story. We could do a like 200 years in the future, the Maglev has fallen apart,
Hmm.
kind of story. But I mean, I was just at Comic-Con last week.
Oh, dude.
Crazy. Yeah. And it's like, it's really hard to come back from there and not just be like, I have 1,000 ideas on different stories.
Hmm.
I'm like, I have a prequel idea for the Killer Clowns from Outer Space movie. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. I should write that right now. So, yeah, I think, right. Because the Maglev process has been like 7 years in the making.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I'm a writer in the sense that it's hard to write sometimes.
Hmm. I
Like
feel
I
you,
banged
brother.
out.
I feel you.
I mean, I wish I had the brain to just kind of sit down and be like, oh, I'm writing today. But it's
Hmm.
just like I wrote this script over the week, like one long weekend. I just banged it out. Now, I mean, I had been dabbling at it for weeks, but then one weekend, I was like a 4-day weekend. I was like, I'm sitting at the computer and I'm doing this. And for some reason, I listened to Lady Gaga's True Romance like 200 times because I mean, if anyone can attest, it's like you find that one song and that one moment that you're like, I can listen to this on repeat and not hear it, but hear
Yep.
it, and it's getting me through the day. So that's what today is.
Hmm.
And then, but I lost my train of thought. Lady Gaga, she blew my mind. But no,
It's
I
easy. It's easy to have that
yeah,
happen.
Yeah, but yeah, so I mean, I wrote the script 6 years ago. Adam has been, working on it ever since. But I've not really done a lot since then. And I've submitted. I mean, I've short stories here and there. Writing contests and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's time to kind of start getting back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just the prequel idea for the Maglev. I'm like, well, shit, that'd be a good way to kind of get my brain back into it. And I have a
Yeah.
cat here who's assigned to be a jerk. Hey, we doing?
Hey, we welcome
Uh,
all animals here. Hey, kitty.
Hi, say hello. Hello. How you
Hello.
doing? He's a
Say,
Batman fan. He's a DC guy. What can I say?
oh, come on now. Come on. I do got to say, DC has a lot of really interesting stuff coming out lately. And I just
Oh,
read,
absolutely.
not to go on a huge long tangent, but we're talking about DC. I just recently read Superwoman, or no, Supergirl. Yeah,
Yeah.
Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow
Oh,
by
I just read
Tom
that
King.
too.
Dude, oh my
How
God.
great is that?
So good. Like I was literally blown away with how good it was. And like
Yeah.
I love DC's. Going through this conversation, I don't want people out there to think like I don't like DC. I mean, that's what I grew up on. Just as well as I do, the to read pile starts stacking up. And
Yes.
unfortunately, DC falls by the wayside, but
Yeah.
man, that book was so good. Like I was
It was
just like
yeah,
blown
such an
away.
elegant way to kind of like the problem with Superman is being and all the super people, just they're so powerful. How do you build a
Mhm.
story around them? And it's just so like, oh, it's his 21st birthday. She wants to get drunk. So she
Yeah.
goes to a planet with a red sun. And then it's
Mhm.
like, okay,
Dude,
awesome.
yeah, just
And
like
then
the
just everything
character
from there.
work and the deep dive into who Kara is. Oh, it was so
Yeah.
good. I don't want to go on a long tangent. We could talk about that all
No,
day.
let's do it.
But
No, yeah.
it does kind of lead to another question though that I've been kind of pondering. So we got Maglev and we don't
Yes.
know what's coming in the future. We got a lot of
Yes.
ideas cooking. But I do have a question. Say tomorrow DC or Marvel comes knocking on Mark's door and they're like, "Hey buddy, we need a story from you." What would be the book for Mark? Like
Huh.
it could be a character or a team, but like what would be the thing that you like, oh, this is it. This is my story. Do you have something like that? Do you have like a particular story in mind for a character that you would love to tell?
It's funny that you say that because I kind of teased it before with the whole Marvel universe, like people having to like live their normal day, whatever.
Yeah.
I've always had this idea where I think it would be interesting if something happened where they all decide they have to go like they go better term back in the closet.
Mhm.
Where like if the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, they're seeing that all the stuff that they've done in the Marvel universe has completely just broken the regular person.
Hmm.
People can't go to work, people can't live their lives. So this idea that if somehow it all gets put back in the bottle, like people don't know superheroes exist, people don't know gods and Galactus and Eternals are a thing. Having to like reboot the Marvel universe in a way that the characters don't forget everything, but the people in the universe forget everything.
Mhm.
So I guess I would love it. I would love. It's funny to start. I want my first book to be a huge crossover event from
Nah, man,
Marvel.
swing for the fences, bro. Come
Yeah,
on, like
right. Go
let's
for
go
it.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, just tackling a thing where it just be like a representative from every form of the Marvel universe coming together and being like, we gotta do something because people can't handle the shit anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's honestly a really great idea. It reminds me of I haven't read like all the issues of this, flipping through, but what is it? The Marvels? Is that
yeah,
the
yeah,
Alex Ross book that's like from the people perspective? But yeah, I mean, that would be I really love that. That's really cool.
yeah,
And like you said, I mean, we see the super heroism and the spectacles and all that, but
yeah,
to see how it affects your just Joe Schmo that works at the factory, I think that would
yeah,
be really really interesting, and that would be a really cool opportunity to really dive deeper in not only the Marvel world but like to our heroes as well. Because like you said, I
yeah.
mean, we have all these heroes, and it's like, yeah, we saved the city, like kind of like that meme of like, oh, we saved the city, but the city's destroyed. But it's
Yeah.
like, taking that even deeper to not even just physical destruction, but emotional destruction of like, the people
Yeah.
who lived through these events. And I mean, we kind of see that a little bit in the MCU, but I think like a comic book to really dive into that would be phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that people still live in Manhattan in the Marvel universe is
New York
I-
at all, like
the rent has to be super cheap. I would
oh
hope,
yeah, yeah, I
like a
would.
3-bedroom apartment for like $500. Like, please just
Yeah.
live here.
Yeah, if the MCU was real, you'd find me at like some like cornfield in Iowa or something, just like completely away from all these cities and everything. Like y'all kids can mess with that stuff over there. I'll be over
Yeah.
here in my cornfield.
Yeah, right. But then all of a sudden, like some meteor will crash into your field, and you're like,
No,
damn
literally,
it.
yeah. And then all of a sudden we have Arishem in the horizon.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like, oh, I just wanted a quiet life.
yeah. As much as I love all this superhero stuff, I am really glad that it is all fake, because I don't think I can I don't think I can handle all that stress.
No, yeah, my heart couldn't take it. I can't even like handle getting up to go to work every day sometimes. And
Yeah, right. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I gotta do work today. But then
Yeah.
in there, they're like, oh my god, super alien is taking over the world, and which that also leads to an interesting question. I wonder if people
Yeah.
get the day off work, in the Marvel universe. Like, you think they get the day off
Yeah.
work when shit like that hits the fan, or
Yeah.
still
Hey,
dollars are
a
dollars,
giant
man.
robotic spider fell in my car. I can't make it to work today.
Like-
Is that like, is the boss going to be like, you've used that excuse
Yeah,
before,
right.
or is it kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I get it. I
Yeah,
hear
nah,
you.
man, happened to me last week. I get you. Or like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, some guy sprayed acid on my favorite suit, so I had to go to work in
Yeah.
a
exactly. I don't know. I
bathing
would
suit.
like to think that they're a little understanding, but I mean, if it's anything like the real world, probably not.
No,
Probably
yeah,
still
probably
get
not.
probably still get fired.
Yeah,
But before we get out of here, again, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to
Yeah,
me
this is great.
about the book and everything. But one
I
of my
appreciate
last
it.
questions I got for you is, so after Maglev is done, after
Mhm.
volume 3 is finished, what's one thing that you hope readers will take away from Maglev, whether that's from, Chris's story or the world of the Maglev? What's something that you hope that readers can take away from the book?
Wow. I mean, I kind of touched upon this a little bit, but I think just the idea that Chris just being a badass and not having any of the tropes that a woman character would fall into. Just this idea that, I don't know, just having read a story that people can kind of see a character that they can relate to, that like, you know what, I just want to be tough and I want to get revenge because I want to get revenge, not because I was wrong completely. I don't know, just this idea that you can build a world, you can make it your own thing, and then just have fun with it, and just you don't have to be like, well, it's a story about this, so this has to happen. Just this idea that like, no, I think at one point, I don't want to do too many spoilers of the book, but Chris does retire, and it kind of opens up with her like in a house having a very domestic life, and you think that it's going to go one way and then it goes another way. And that was one of my favorite things, where I remember Adam texting me being like, okay, you kind of got me with that. I was like, yeah, see, like, you don't have to go the traditional route. You can just, you go right. And that's always my favorite things from movies growing up, that like the hero could just go right. I remember in the original Daredevil movie, I know, kind of a random pull.
Wake me up inside.
I can't wake up. There was a scene. I mean, my partner is like, why do you watch all these horrible movies? And I go, if there's one thing in a movie that is new and original to me, it was worth it. And with that one movie, I could say that of all of it, there was one scene when Daredevil hears someone yelling in the distance for help, and Elektra is like, you should just stay. And he's like, okay. And it was this idea where the hero could just be like, you know what? I'm not gonna go. I am gonna stay. And I don't know. I kind of like when stories do that, when they take you down this path that you think everything is going to be, well, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and then it doesn't. I love that, and I tried to do a lot of that in this book, and I hope people who read it kind of appreciate the fact that like we kind of maneuvered around a lot of the traditional tropes that you expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys nailed it. And I mean, we always need more awesome, badass female characters. So I got to say thank you for, taking that initiative and trying to write a character that purposely does not fall into these tropes. I mean, I just absolutely love that. And that's something that we at the Sons of Mjolnir will always support. And like I said, we need more of that in comics. So
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, like I said, I really enjoyed the book. Everyone out there, please go pick up Greetings from the Maglev. That is going to be dropping September. Do we have an exact date on that?
I don't think we do, but I think it's definitely September.
Okay, September.
Yeah, I think it's already in Diamond preview. Yeah, and all that stuff.
I would say it's on Kickstarter currently, correct?
No, it ended. We
okay.
We did well. We met a goal in like 4 hours or something like that.
Hey, let's go. So
let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Like I said, so everyone, please go pick up Greetings from the Maglev. The other volumes will be coming out hopefully soon after that.
Yeah, Adam, the second book is completely drawn. It just needs to get lettered. So like we're already ahead of the game. The third book, Adam still has to draw, but a lot of that is on me to give him a new abridged script. And I'm gonna do it today. I swear, Adam. If you're listening, I swear.
We'll get it. We'll get it. I swear. But yeah, for all of us, for all you guys out there watching and listening, like I said, please go pick up this book. I very thoroughly enjoyed it. Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming on, giving us the opportunity to showcase your work, nerd out about DC and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. It's really been an absolute pleasure. But I want to throw it off to you right now. This is your time, my friend. Plug what you got going on. Where can the people find you? Tell them all about it.
I mean, I would say I'm on Twitter, but does Twitter even exist anymore?
I say, you mean X, dude?
X, yeah. I mean, I'm on there, Mark Espinosa, 2 E's in the middle, just kind of, and I'm same thing for Instagram, just pitching, just out there spouting out nonsense. Hopefully, something will come along that'll grab my attention. I'll move forward with it. But yeah, right now it's just really all about getting Maglev done and completed, and then from there I'll be an empty void waiting to be filled with ideas to move forward with.
Man. Well, you have fans here, my friend. You have our loyalty, and we will definitely be front and center for everything you got coming on. And like I said, I couldn't be more excited. I couldn't be more excited for Volume 2, Volume 3. And whatever else the future holds, my friend. And like I said, it's been real honor having you here. Is there anything else you have for the fans out there? Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
I will say also check out Adam's book, The Nasty, from Bolt Comics. They are amazing. If you're talking about Adam's style evolving over the past few years, is what he's doing in that book is just amazing. It's beautiful. His cover, I think the cover to issue 4 is probably one of my favorite covers to a comic book ever. So yeah, definitely check that out.
Awesome. Definitely shout out to Adam. Hopefully next time we link up together, we'll be able to have him on as well. But everyone, please go check out his books as well. For all the things that we talked about today, I will have links in the description for both the Maglev, for Adam's books, for all that stuff. So go on down there to go check out these books. But other than that, I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to get out of here. That's all that we have for you guys today. Again, Mark, I know I've said this a bunch of times, but I just want to say thank you again for coming on and nerding out with me today. All you nerds out there, please, again, go pick up Greetings from the Maglev. I hope all your stacks are fat. Please stay hydrated, and we will see you all next time.
I can do this all day.